a deeply divisive figure at home and abroad, and is the only leader the Southern African country has known since declaring independence from colonial power Britain in 1980. Now, he is one of a handful of African leaders remaining from a generation that fought white domination, which included South Africa's Nelson Mandela. But while Mandela served one presidential term and then retired, Mugabe tightened his grip on power and shows no signs of departing from the political scene. Reaffirming his authority ahead of his 92nd birthday, Mugabe threatened to discipline ruling party members he accuses of fanning divisions over who will succeed him. In a 30-minute speech broadcast on state-owned ZBC TV late on Friday, Mugabe said he was disturbed by what he called dogfights and insults among senior officials of the ruling ZANU-PF party, who are divided over who should succeed him. Mugabe says ZANU-PF will choose his successor, but he plans to contest the next election in 2018, when he'll be aged 94, seeking his last 5-year term under a new constitution that would see him through to the age of 99. His life presidency aspirations are frustrating the feuding factions of ZANU-PF, who have been trying for years to position themselves for a post-Mugabe political era. Now, voting in Niger's presidential and legislative elections stretched into a second day on Monday in areas where logistical problems prevented polling the previous day, delaying the preliminary election results. President Mahamadou Issoufou, who has vowed to crush Islamist militants and reduce the country's deep poverty, is running against 14 other candidates, including Sani Umaru, leader of an opposition coalition. Here's Kevin Juma with the rest of that story.
Niger's president expressed hope for a calm and peaceful election on Sunday as voters cast their ballots in the country's presidential election. Mahamadou Issoufou is seeking a second term in office, voted at a polling station at the city's hall in the capital, Niamey.
I hope that this election proceeds calmly and peacefully. In any case, there will be one winner, and that is Niger.
Issoufou is running on a promise to crush Islamist militants and develop one of the poorest countries in the world. Niger, which closed its borders and ramped up security for the election, prides itself on being peaceful relative to its neighbors Nigeria, Libya and Mali. But the Islamist militant group Boko Haram, which is based in neighboring Nigeria, has staged a series of attacks in recent months in Niger, forcing authorities to declare a state of emergency in the southern eastern region of Difa. 14 other candidates are challenging Yusuf for the presidential seat, including Sani Umar, leader of an opposition coalition. Umar, who finished second place in the 2011 election, also cast his ballot in the capital.
It feels as though our duty has been accomplished with the electoral process. It is the end of this process, and we believe that God will help us today so that these legislative and presidential elections proceed in peace and serenity in order for the best to win.
Under election rule, a runoff will be held if no candidate secures an outright victory. Zinzi Kibiku, KTN News.
Zinzi Kibiku there, and not Kevin Juma, as we had earlier told you. Now, the latest from the volatile state of Burundi indicate that 3 people were killed in gun and grenade attacks in the capital just hours before the arrival of UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, who is trying to end the bloodshed over President Pierre Nkurunziza's disputed re-election. The United Nations is under growing pressure to show it can halt the violence 2 decades after the 1994 genocide of ethnic Tutsis and moderate Hutus by the Hutu majority in neighboring Rwanda, which has a similar ethnic makeup to Burundi. Celestin Siringabo, head of District 50 kilometers east of the capital Bujumbura, said gunmen killed 2 people late on Sunday when they opened fire in a bar. Separately, the deputy police spokesman said 1 person had died and another had been wounded in a grenade attack at Bujumbura Market on Monday morning. No group has claimed responsibility for the attacks, but the government says there are now 3 rebel outfits fomenting violence, including 2 made of renegade soldiers. Kenya's President Uhuru Kenyatta is in Tel Aviv, Israel, for a state visit that will see him address bilateral partnerships with the country on various fronts, with particular interest in security and agriculture. Israel is a key partner in the Galana Kulalu Food Security Program, an irrigation project that has sparked debate on its effectiveness. His visit will include a tour of desert farms in Israel as Kenya seeks to learn from the world-renowned Israeli irrigation systems. KTN's Sharon Mamanyi is in Tel Aviv and now reports.
President Uhuru Kenyatta arrived here in Tel Aviv, Israel earlier this evening to a state visit that is packed with matters economy, security and agriculture. Earlier on, we had spoken to the ambassador to Israel, speaking about the relationship between the two countries.
We have a few challenges. One of them is modern agriculture, and Israel is renowned for solving issues of agriculture, especially in severe conditions and where water is scarce. That is one. Number two, we also have challenges in security, and for one reason or another, Israel has advanced in the world and known to have an advantage in security. And we expect that with their knowledge and with the systems that they have, that we'll be able to borrow this and be able to improve on our own security.
One of the key areas of cooperation between Kenya and Israel is in food security. Israel is a key partner in the Galana Kulalu Food Security Project.
Phase 1 of the Galana Kulalu Food Security Project entails the establishment of a 10,000-acre model farm to demonstrate the use of high water efficiency technologies, which will be replicated in the rest of the irrigation area in the project. The aim is to promote food security by cutting reliance on rain-fed agriculture and to bring down the cost of maize, which is a staple food in Kenya.
There's a committee, a steering committee that is supposed to sit down and talk, discuss with a steering committee from the Israeli side on how best to assist Kenya in as far as water issues and irrigation is concerned. We have an ongoing food security project in Galana Kulalu that is in the beginning, the research stage where they are researching to see how best to grow maize.
The last sitting president of Kenya to visit the state of Israel was retired President Daniel Torotich Arap Moi more than 2 decades ago. President Uhuru Kenyatta now makes a state visit that speaks volumes to the renewal of ties between the two countries. Kenya is set to benefit from Israel's knowledge and systems, particularly in the areas of security and agriculture. Sharon Momanyi, KTN News, Tel Aviv, Israel.
But before President Uhuru Kenyatta left for Israel, he made the announcement that he had declined to appoint a tribunal to investigate bribery allegations against Supreme Court Judge Justice Philip Tunoi, citing a pending judicial consideration on Justice Tunoi's retirement age. A letter by the Chief of Staff and Head of Public Service Joseph Kinyua to the Chief Justice Dr. Willy Mutunga says forming the tribunal as recommended by the Judicial Service Commission would create a constitutional crisis. As Rita Tanina reports, State House says it shall await the outcome of the judicial process before processing the JSC's petition.
As time ticked away to the 14-day deadline for the appointment of a tribunal to investigate bribery allegations against Supreme Court Judge Justice Philip Tunoi, the Judicial Service Commission and State House engaged in a back and forth over the petition. The JSC insisting it had submitted all the required documents. State House, on the other hand, saying it had not received all crucial documents, making it difficult for the president to appoint a tribunal. A tribunal will not be formed, at least not just yet, and it has nothing to do with missing documents. A letter by the Chief of Staff and Head of Public Service, Joseph Kenywa, to Chief Justice Dr. Willy Mutunga cites an ongoing case at the Court of Appeal in which Justice Tunoi is challenging his retirement age. Justice Tunoi lost the battle at the High Court, which ruled that judges should retire at the age of 70 as stipulated under the new constitution. But in his appeal, Justice Tunoi, who is 72 years old, argues he was appointed judge under the old constitution, which set the retirement age at 74 years. In the letter, State House says, at this particular moment in time when the appeal is still pending and where the status of the judge is subject to judicial consideration, implementing the recommendation of the JSC in line with Article 168 would create a constitutional crisis. We therefore propose that we await the outcome of the judicial process, after which we shall process the petition as required by the Constitution and the law, concludes the letter. A decision that may have thrown the country into uncharted territory.
The Constitution does not anticipate any circumstances or any situations where, once the Judicial Service Commission has made a recommendation that a tribunal be formed, that the same can be declined or the president can give a different view about it. So what we have here now is a situation where we are in untested waters. The president has a different opinion from the JSC. What next? A stalemate. What is that stalemate? A constitutional crisis.
If the Court of Appeal rules that Justice Tunoi should have retired at 70, the establishment of a tribunal will be rendered unnecessary. But before the case is determined,
I think only one man can save us from the constitutional crisis, and that's Tunoi himself. And the choice that Tunoi has is to resign.
Rita Tinina, KTN News.
Martin Alo still here with us. Now he'll be putting on his lawyer's hat, I imagine. Did the president breach the Constitution in not appointing the tribunal?
You see, the Constitution says that once the Judicial Service Commission has made a recommendation, the president has 14 days upon which to appoint a tribunal. It doesn't say whether or not a tribunal can be appointed. It just says 14 days a tribunal should be established. Now, in these particular circumstances, what we have is an opinion about what would happen if the courts were to rule otherwise.
Yes.
I think that that's a matter that should be adjudicated within the tribunal.
Right.
And the point would have been that the tribunal should have been set up and requested to first process this issue so as to then dispense with it. And chances are that that issue could have occupied the tribunal for the better part until even the ruling comes, and then the tribunal would have collapsed. But that's really, to me, not the issue. The issue is there are allegations of a bribe of 200 million.
Yeah. Will we ever get to
Will
the
we ever
bottom
get to,
of
if
that?
we go
Yeah.
this route,
Right.
the point would be that we cannot go the tribunal route. So we are only left with the other route, which is maybe the ethics and corruption, and maybe
Which could come in should the Court of Appeal rule,
actually,
a stay of
these are criminal allegations. What
Yeah.
stops the EACC or indeed the DCIO, the Director of Criminal Investigation, from picking it up?
Right.
One would have heard that we are already investigating this so that something happens. But the reality is that if it turns out that he has to retire, then certainly we will not have a case in our hands, because you can't appoint a tribunal to try somebody who is not supposed to be a judge in the first place.
But certainly we would hope that other, mechanisms would kick in, right, to get to the bottom of it. Because it almost seems like, and he's innocent until proven guilty, but it almost seems like if he resigns, then, that's the end of that. And whether or not a bribe was given or taken or, those influence at the highest court in the land, this story just ends there?
The problem is that we are left with some dirt which has been thrown at the judiciary. If we never get to the bottom of this in terms of a tribunal, this dirt or this mud will never get away. The best thing would have been that at least some kind of a hearing is then established, and then we get to know the truth. But as it sits now, come end of the day tomorrow, we have a crisis. And the crisis is we don't know what to do next, because the JSC cannot go back and act. And the JSC cannot say we are sitting to wait for the Court of Appeal. And to know he cannot sit on the bench, because then he's been declared to have a case against him. So that's why I was saying earlier that the best thing he can do is to say, look, I go. And if he goes right now, everything goes with him.
People have speculated that there was more to this, the president's decision, than just waiting, for the Court of Appeal, and that there would be a constitutional crisis. But I mean, it is known that there's a lot of politics surrounding the succession of Chief Justice Willie Mutunga. Do you think there was more to this decision than we're being told?
The appointments or the selection or indeed the replacements on a Supreme Court is a political issue. And Supreme Courts world over preside over very critical judicial processes, but also very critical political processes. That's why our Supreme Court has this mandate to adjudicate over presidential petitions. So in an election year, just like right now, you've seen the judge that passed on in the US.
Yes.